Ladies and gentlemen, welcome aboard today's edition, Human Events Daily. Huge story today, and we are breaking exclusive footage in the Kyle Rittenhouse case, footage that no one has seen before. That's the first thing that we're going to talk about next. 18 New York City fire companies have shut down after firefighters there were sent home after refusing the vaccine mandate. Third, U.S.-trained Afghan special forces, the report of the WSJ, are joining ISIS-K for protection against the Taliban. Finally, a convicted murderer named Rodney Reed has been denied his retrial even after support from Kim Kardashian. All this and more ahead, Human Events Daily. On the evening of August 25th, 2020, following 3 nights of riots and arson and terror throughout the city of Kenosha, Wisconsin, Kyle Rittenhouse and another group of armed members of the community, members of the area, decided that they had had enough and they wanted to protect the town, the village, really. I've been to Kenosha, I've walked that area, I've walked those streets, protected from what was going on. These marauders who are coming through and destroying everything in their path. You heard yesterday, if you watched the jury selection, that this was a town that had been terrorized, absolutely terrorized. People were saying, take down your American flags so you don't become a target. Other potential jurors were saying that they had been so terrified that they moved their family out of the county. Other jurors said they couldn't afford to bring their family out of the county, get a hotel, et cetera, for the whole time. So they were sleeping with their children in local churches. That's how bad things got in Kenosha. Human Events Daily has obtained exclusive footage. This is drone footage. And we were told that it comes from the FBI, which had a drone up that evening that captured the entire sequence of events. I warn you, this footage is graphic, and it does include, for the first time ever seen, the final moments between Joseph Rosenbaum and Kyle Rittenhouse. Rosenbaum, of course, we know, chases Kyle. His associate, Zeminski, fires at Kyle. Then they disappear on the footage that we've seen behind a series of parked cars in this car lot. That's where the shooting takes place. Now, for the first time ever, we can show you from this drone footage that we're told comes from the FBI what actually happened behind those cars. Here we go.
Damn, bro. Yeah, trailer. Oh, yeah. Man, they definitely need that trash can to put their garbage out. Oh, he's blocking the road. So now we're out by further. I see a large crowd over here smashing the SUVs. I think.
So you can see very clearly on this footage that it was an absolutely chaotic night, a horrific night, following 2 nights. This is the 3rd night in a row this took place. Screams, gunshots, sirens in the background. But what you see on the drone footage that's never before been seen is that after Rosenbaum chases Kyle through that parking lot, after the gunshot is fired behind Kyle's back, Rosenbaum then pursues Kyle, corners him behind those cars, lunges at him, and lunges for the rifle in Kyle's hands. Kyle Rittenhouse was not the aggressor, and this footage proves it. The state of Wisconsin, the prosecutors in this case, have had this footage from day one. Why did they not release this? Why did they let the public and the media spin an insane story, a false narrative about what went down? Because we have the footage and you have had it the entire time. So for the latest update in get out of cities, I've been saying this for a long time, probably over a year now, and I'm just going to keep repeating it because some of you aren't understanding it. Get out of cities. Just don't be there for the foreseeable future. 5 years, 10 years, whatever it may be. Specifically, large cities. I'm an East Coast guy myself, and so I understand that America's large cities on the East Coast are large. They're largely gone. Right? They're largely in a declining spiral. It's getting worse. It's going to get a lot worse before it gets better. When you talk about the West Coast, go, take your pick. Seattle, Portland, San Francisco, Los Angeles, right? These are not places that you want to be. I was just in Denver. It was horrific. Chicago, downtown Chicago, I found to be I thought was nice. I mean, these cities, it's not to say these cities don't have nice areas in them, but it's all that happens around them. Washington, D.C., not breaking any news here, but I'll just say that we are working on our escape plan. It'll be, for me, since Navy intelligence sent me to Washington, D.C. Almost 10 years ago. It was 2012 when I was first stationed at Navy intelligence. And then, it'll be 10 years in April here. So just a couple of months away from 10 years in D.C. And we're working on our escape plan. We don't live in the city proper. Obviously, I'm not going to talk about where I live actually, but let's talk about New York City. New York City, of course, has an election today. It looks as though Eric Adams, the Democrat candidate, will be elected and become the next mayor of New York. So we'll see how that plays out. But look at the headline this is in the Daily Mail. It's also been corroborated. CNN, New York Post, New York Daily News, everywhere else in the New York papers. 18 New York City fire companies are out of 300 out of service after firefighters are sent home for refusing to comply with the vaccine mandate, and 2,300 firefighters in New York City have called out sick. 5,000 New York Police Department unvaccinated cops have filed exemptions to keep their jobs, and de Blasio's COVID jab mandate creates EMT havoc. So you're talking about people being sent home. You're talking about people calling out, doing sick outs. What's that for? It's because of vaccine mandates. Now we're talking about New York City, your fire department, your police department. Think of everything that the police officers and the police departments around this country have gone through in the last 18 months, the last 2 years, right? They've been under attack. There has been a political campaign waged against law enforcement in this country. They are trying to shut it down. They are trying to remove it. They are literally, in the city of Minneapolis, trying to shut down the police department and create this new public safety department, which is going to include social workers and mental health counselors that are sent out to all of these different, situations. But when it comes down to it, when your house is burning down, you don't need a social worker. You need a firefighter. So these are the people, and God bless every single one of them. And the fact that we have people that are willing, that when they see a burning building, when they see a situation where people are in danger, they are willing to go in and to help. Listen to this video that came out just recently talking about all this.
After 6 on the deadline of the vaccination mandate, and members of the New York City firefighters, fire department are being put on leave without pay. We're not clear what the numbers are. We're not entirely clear how many fire companies will be closed today. We're expecting dozens. We're hoping fire recovery is not hinged upon, but it's very hard to say this time. We're here today because of a mandate that was put on our members, but also on all New York City employees, given 9 days to make a life-changing decision on their career or whether or not they can take a vaccine. And we're going to live with the aftermath of this right now.
You have it right there. The president of the Uniformed Firefighters Association. These families, remember, it's not just the firefighters, it's the families, the spouses, the children that know that when they go to work, they can be put in a situation where they're putting their lives on the line for other people. So God bless them for existing, and God bless them for being there for other people. This is the type of person you want to support. This is the type of family that society should always support. You got to support the working families, the working men and women of this country, because without them, everything stops. You don't have truckers, you don't have products on your shelves. You don't have firefighters, you have buildings burning down. And if you don't have police officers, well, you see what's going on in major cities right now when they're pulling back the police. And that's why I say, as long as this goes on, as long as this campaign of insanity goes on in our cities against these first responders, get out of cities. Thanks again for supporting us, for continuing to support the show. Go to mypillow.com, use promo code POSO, get your shopping done now. Christmas is coming up faster than you can believe. It's only 1 month away. Okay, well, it's more like 6-7 weeks away, whatever. You want your presents in now. Don't put it off. Be one of those people that, look, when my dad used to say, he said, when you fail to plan, you plan to fail. When you fail to plan, you plan to fail. What does that mean? That means get your Christmas shopping done. Don't worry about it. Don't put it off. Just go to mypillow.com, use promo code POSO. You don't have to pay full freight on all this stuff. Upgrade your own sleep system and everybody else's in your family. You go there, and it's great products. We use them. We sleep on them. It's amazing. It's absolutely amazing. Thank you for supporting us. Go use mypillow.com, promo code POSO. This story, and I saw this on Zero Hedge, but it's a write-up of a Wall Street Journal investigative report. This is absolutely insane. Here's the headline. U.S.-trained Afghan spies and special forces are joining ISIS for protection against the Taliban. So you remember this, right? When we left, we had Tony Blinken and the administration, and they promised us that they would be so kind and they wouldn't do anything, and they wouldn't lay a finger on the hair of any single member of the people that had worked with the United States. And of course, we cut and left them there. We left U.S. citizens there. Listen to what Tony Blinken said at the time about the Taliban. Listen to what he said.
We continue our intensive diplomacy with allies and partners. We initiated a statement joined by more than half the world's countries, over 100 countries, as well as the United Nations Security Council resolution, setting out the international community's expectations of a Taliban-led government. We expect the Taliban to ensure freedom of travel, to make good on its commitments on counterterrorism, to uphold the basic rights of the Afghan people, including women, girls, and minorities, to name a broadly representative permanent government, to forswear reprisals. The legitimacy and support the Taliban seeks from the international community will depend on its conduct.
So that was then, this is now. Many former national Afghan forces who are now being hunted by the Taliban after their U.S. military backers withdrew from the country in August are turning to the Islamic State for protection, new investigative Wall Street Journal report finds. Also among those joining the ranks of ISIS in Afghanistan, or ISIS-K, Khorasan, are members of Afghanistan's U.S.-trained intelligence service. The number of defectors joining the terrorist group is relatively small, but growing, according to people who know these men, to former Afghan security officials and to the Taliban. Though this is happening in small numbers and is described as a move out of desperation, it could be a huge boon to ISIS-K's capabilities, given U.S.-trained intelligence members bring their expertise and capabilities with them to the terrorist group. Critics of the Biden administration's Afghan exit fiasco have long warned that left behind U.S. assets will be swooped up by terror groups. If you understand anything about human nature, if you understand anything about human motivation, incentives, all of this, This was the most predictable outcome for anyone looking at this situation. If you have a US trained unit, that means they train with America. That means the Taliban views you as the enemy. Well, you didn't get brought out. You didn't get brought to safety. You haven't been brought to any of our partner nations in the area where you can actually do something good. So instead, you were left behind, left to cut and left high and dry by the Biden administration. So who's the Taliban's biggest serious enemy? Yes, there's the tigers of the Panjshir, right, up in Panjshir province, but they haven't been able to field a serious resistance effort. But they know, who else is out there is ISIS-K. And the Taliban and ISIS-K have been locked in battle for a long time. So if you're someone who's also being hunted down by ISIS-K, hunted down by the Taliban, where are you going to go? You're going to go to ISIS-K. And that's exactly what these people are doing. And they're cashing out from their chips, from everything they were taught, the training, the expertise that they were given by the United States and the Afghan intel service, and the data and the biometrics and the tactics and the methods that the Americans and everyone else gave them for all those years, and then put them in the situation where they left them behind. What did you think they were going to do? And this is why, ladies and gentlemen, we have to stop messing around in that part of the world. Kim Kardashian does not run our justice system, and neither does Dr. Phil. Yet, over the course of the past few years, those two have been interjecting themselves in a number of murder cases around the country, trying to sway public officials to their narrative. And they're doing this alongside a group called the Innocence Project, who's very tied in with powerful executives at Netflix and powerful Democrat operatives. This situation threatens to overturn our system of law. Well, in Bastrop County, Texas, just outside of Austin, a case involving a man named Rodney Reed, who was convicted of rape and murder all the way back in a case that began 1996 against a teenage girl named Stacy Stites. They've been trying to get him off of death row. A judge just came out and said that all of these claims do not amount to anything and that he should not be given a new trial, that the case was handled properly, and that even with all of these new claims made by Kardashian and Dr. Phil and the Innocence Project and all the people coming out, he needs to remain convicted. Listen to an interview that was given by the sister of the victim.
What leads you to believe that Reed is guilty of Stites' murder?
I think that what the celebrities didn't know is the entire story, that Rodney Reed has a history of physical and sexual violence against women. They keep saying, well, he hasn't been found guilty in these other cases, but those women still have stories, and to tell them that what happened to them doesn't matter because they didn't get their day in court is an atrocity of justice.
What's your response, though, to people who say the new witnesses should be heard and the new evidence presented before deciding whether Reed lives or dies?
I do think that the evidence needs to be heard. At no point do we want to deny him the full extent of the justice system. However, I don't put a lot of faith in people that come out 2 decades later and have sudden memories. I always wonder, where were these people during that first year when there was a $50,000 reward by HEB? And if they had information, they could have come forward with it.
I see. On the day Reed was scheduled to be executed, you released a statement saying in part, "Today we start fighting back to get justice for all of Rodney Reed's victims." What do you have planned?
Just to speak out more like this, I've reached out to the other victims and told them that I apologize that we hadn't spoken out sooner, but the violence against women is not acceptable. We've made so much progress with the Me Too movement. These women are saying, Rodney Reed assaulted me too, Rodney Reed raped me too. And if no one else is going to stand up and be a voice for those women, I will.
Certainly, there are many perspectives on this case, and we thank you so much for taking the time to share yours. As of now, no new hearings have been set for when new evidence will be reviewed, but you can count on Spectrum News to continue to follow this story, to talk to people on both sides of it, and to bring you the very latest. Deborah, thank you so much for taking the time, and thank you so much for joining us for this interview. Now, more news and weather.
Now, you won't hear the sister of the victim on Kim Kardashian or Dr. Phil because they won't give her a voice. They instead give a voice to this monster who has committed an entire crusade of crimes against women. They'll give him a voice. Well, justice prevailed in Austin, Texas, because the judge looked at this and despite these claims, said, no, we are going to go with the justice system. We are not going to go with Dr. Phil and Kim Kardashian. Really huge show today. Make sure you share this one out. If you're going to share an episode out, share this one with your normie friends. That information, the footage, and go watch the video version of this. You can find it on Rumble, Facebook, YouTube. It's everywhere right now. It'll be on Twitter, of course, at the same time. That you have to share this footage out about Kyle Rittenhouse. This is never before seen. You can actually see the pursuit. You can see all of it. That's what Human Events does. We get you the stories that no one else will cover. No one else has this footage. We are able to give it to you, and we're putting it out into the world because we need to provide positive information about what's actually happening in our country. But before we go, it's time for today's moment of history. Today in France, 1789, the French government during the Revolution confiscated all of the churches in France and turned them into temples of reason, and they tried to dethrone God. But we are not letting them dethrone God here in the United States because we still believe in him and we still believe that we are endowed by our Creator. Ladies and gentlemen, you have my permission to lay ashore.